passar pelo ribeiro.
Queridos amigos, bienvenidas y bienvenidos a este encuentro, esta conversación con Steve Reich dentro del Festival de las Artes de Castilla y León y del Instituto de Investigaciones Artísticas Katarina Gurska. Es un placer estar con todos vosotros y vosotras. Mi nombre es Luis Ángel de Benito, de Radio Clásica, Radio Nacional de España. Y bueno, es un inmenso honor tener con nosotros al maestro Steve Reich. Hello, Steve Reich, how are you?
Hi, very well, thank you.
How is the weather in New York?
Well, actually, I'm 50 miles north of New York, and the sun is shining, and it's quite beautiful.
Okay, we can take advantage of this. Muy bien. Pues quizá lo sabéis muchos y muchas de vosotros, Steve Reich fue denominado recientemente como el pensador musical más original de nuestro tiempo por el New Yorker y entre los más grandes compositores del siglo por el New York Times. Tiene un Grammy, tiene un premio Pulitzer, también tiene la medalla de oro de la música por la American Academy of Arts and Letters, también tiene el Integral de Tokio, el Polar Music Prize. Y aquí en España le dimos, vamos a ponerlo en primera persona del plural, el premio BBVA Fronteras del Conocimiento 2013. How do you feel about this, Steve Reich? Because Arvo Part received this prize yesterday. How do you feel about that?
I think that's a wonderful thing. I have a tremendous regard to Arvo Pärt. He, for me, is a great composer in Europe, and I have felt that way for 40 years. So I'm very grateful that you gave it to me, and I'm very proud that Arvo Pärt will join also. Congratulations to him, congratulations to you.
Y a usted, Elder Reich.
Gracias.
Steve Reich. Muy bien. Pues estupendo. Tenemos con nosotros, a dos intérpretes de lujo. En España tenemos a Pedro Pablo Cámara. Bienvenido, Pedro Pablo.
Hola,
saxofonista. Buenas. ¿Qué tal estás? Saxofonista, él ha participado en 1000 festivales internacionales, podéis consultar su currículum, en la Orquesta Filarmónica de Suiza, la Europea, la Orquesta de la Academia de Festival de Lucerna, Orquesta de la Radio de Frankfurt, la Mahler Chamber Orchestra, trabajando con Simon Rattle, con Pablo Eras Casado, etc. Estamos muy honrados de que estés con nosotros, Pedro Pablo.
Buenas tardes, Luis Ángel. Muchas gracias. Un placer.
Y tenemos a Juanjo Guillem, que muy conocido en el mundo de la percusión. Él es solista, es músico de orquesta, es profesor, compositor, productor, muy polifacético. Y bueno, actualmente es el director artístico y fundador de Neopercusión. También está dirigiendo los ciclos madrileños, Ritmo Vital, Connect Arte Sonoro, Agora Actual, etc., etc. Y es profesor solista de la Orquesta Nacional de España. Bienvenido, Juanjo Guillem.
Gracias, bienvenidos a todos igualmente.
Muy bien. Pues si queréis, if you feel well, Steve Reich, we can start to do some questions, and this is an informal encounter. Muy bien. Muy bien. Okay, I can start, and if you have questions or you have something to add, Juanjo and Pablo and Pedro Pablo, you can participate in the question. Muy bien. Okay, Mr. Reich, you are known and beloved for your magical driving of sound repetition, the spiral rather than cycles in your music. New York Counterpoint would be a magnificent example of the music you created in the 1980s. Did you reflect a gradual creation process here through the adding or through the growing of the elements, the themes, the musical motifs? could you define this work like this gradual creation process?
Well, New York Counterpoint was the second of the Counterpoint pieces. The first one was called Vermont Counterpoint for flute. And what happened was the flutist Ransom Wilson called me on the telephone in, I guess, 1980 and said, "Would you write me a flute concerto?" And I said, "No." Because I'm not interested in the idea of a soloist versus an orchestra. I'm interested always in ensemble work. And then after I hung up the phone, I thought to myself, this is crazy. Here is this wonderful musician, and all I can say is no. So I began to think about what I had done in the 1960s with, say, violin phase, where one player records themselves and then again and again, and then plays back live against the recording. And I thought, well, I called Ransom Wilson, the flutist, back on the phone, and I said, look, Ransom, would you consider recording yourself on flute and also alto flute to make it a little bit lower and piccolo to make it a little bit higher, and then later playing back live in concert hall against these pre-recordings? And to my surprise, he said, yes, I'd love to. So that piece happened. Oh, several years later, I got a telephone call from Richard Stoltzman, very famous clarinetist. You probably know him. And he asked also, and the same situation happened. The clarinet is an instrument that has been very, particularly the bass clarinet, has a very big role in music for 18 musicians, very famous piece of mine. And the B-flat clarinet is also in music for 18 musicians. And because those two instruments have a very big range of sound from low to high, it was a very attractive possibility. So I wrote the piece primarily as a solo piece for a soloist to play with pre-recorded accompaniment as a kind of new kind of recital piece. And most of the time, that is what is played. But sometimes, particularly in schools, it is done with all live players. And it depends. Generally speaking, the solo version is better because the ensemble is better.
Okay. So this what you describe in some interviews about the gradual process of creation is manifest in this work, in the repetitions, in the growing of the elements in this work.
No, I think you are stopping me in 1968 and saying here in 2020 or 1980 you must be the same person. Sorry. Music as a gradual process is an essay that I wrote about my own music in 1968. And it's a very good description of what I did in 1968 and before. It is not a manifesto. I don't like manifestos. I like people who figure out what has to happen as it happens and plan ahead. So, but generally speaking, the rate of change in New York Counterpoint is relatively slow. The harmonies, which you hear at the very beginning of the piece, go slowly from one to the other. And generally speaking, you stay in a certain key for a good long time and then move. Sometimes it moves back and forth more rapidly because it was 20 years later. But in other words, when you are young, you have certain ideas and they become very formative. They set you in motion. But if you are not a machine, you grow and you change. And so those ideas also grow and they change. So let's say New York Counterpoint is a big difference from, let's say, violin phase. Couldn't be more different. So violin phase is strictly music as a gradual process. New York Counterpoint is a slowly changing, harmonically varied, much more melodically rich piece. So I prefer New York Counterpoint.
Yes, yes. Of course, of course. Perhaps I prefer too, counterpoint. Okay. One more question before my friends can participate. Would it be possible to consider New York Counterpoint like a revision of a three-movement sonata? In any way, first movement with introduction and fast movement, two, slow and more melodic movement, and three, ludic and festive movement. Or do you prefer not to propose this association with old forms?
No, the idea, you are quite right. I mean, I would not use the word sonata at all, but I mean, fast, slow, fast. Let's go to Scarlatti and before Scarlatti. I mean, this is very old thinking. You know, very, very good, well-established way of making music. So I am doing the same thing. I salute Scarlatti, absolutely. I salute all Baroque composers. So, in that, of course, that separation is we like it. We, the human race, like it that way. So in that sense, yes, I don't think sonata conjures up the idea first theme, second theme, develop and recapitulate. That does not apply. But the basic idea of a fast movement followed by a slow movement, followed by but again, the slow movement is exactly half the tempo of the first movement, and the last movement resumes the exact same tempo as the first. That is more 20th century thinking. So basically, the answer to your question is yes, but.
Thank you. I feel very comfortable with you.
Okay, good. That's the most important thing.
Okay, Juanjo, Guillem, do you want to ask the maestro some of your questions?
Yes, very happy to speak with you, Mr. Reich. It's an honor to be. Well, my interest is a percussionist interest. When I work your pieces, my first piece I played when I was 15 years old. I played 6 marimbas. Was a very emotional thing because I never played some. Yes, because I didn't have the habit to repeat so many times, and so it was. I'm playing. I said, what I'm doing now? Why I'm repeating so many times? And my teacher says to me, you have to repeat to find a lot of interesting things while you repeat it. So it was an emotion for me to play this music. Now we are playing in 2 weeks, Mallet Quartet. And I have technical question for you because I speak sometimes with different colleagues, and some of them tell me, no, maestro says you have to use this kind of mallet, you have to use this kind of, plastic or something like that. So my question is about which kind of sound you would like to have in the instruments in mallet quartet, like for the marimbas, for example, which is a very open instrument about mallet.
Okay, very good question. In Mallet Quartet, the marimbas are basically, there are 2 marimbas, and they are both playing interlocking patterns. They playing the same pattern in different rhythmic positions, same notes against each other. And they are setting up, if you like, a complicated accompaniment for the vibraphones. The mallets that I prefer are a medium hard, medium rubber mallet again. It doesn't mean that that you or any percussionist anywhere might decide, well, you know, it also depends on the room you are in. If a room is very reverberant, a lot of reverb, then the rubber mallets really should be used. In a room that is more secco, more dry, you might want to say, well, I like the sound of these particular wound, these nylon or cotton wound mallets. It's a richer sound for me, and I can still hear everything because the room is so clear. So any good musician plays the instrument and he plays the room too, as you know. The vibraphones are the soloists, so to speak. They have the melodic material, also playing in canon with each other, and they need a fairly hard mallet. Not too hard, you don't want to hurt your ear, because if you play a vibraphone with a really hard mallet, you don't want to do that. So again, you know, in the score, I specify medium hard wound mallet to give you a general picture. But the real decision is your decision, or whoever is playing the piece. When my ensemble was playing, we have certain mallets we use, but if in a different situation, we have to play differently at different mallets. So when I would say basically for the medium hard rubber mallets for the marimbas, medium hard wound mallets for the vibraphones. But this is just general. The real decision that I want you to play the piece. I want you to love the piece, and I want you to love the piece, and I want you to interpret the piece as comes to you as you're playing. Because otherwise, who cares?
About feeling, I have about the feeling. I have one question. When I play with the African musicians, first time when I played, I thought, why they are going so forward?
So forward?
Forward tempo, you know. And when we finish, we stay in the same tempo that the beginning. I said, how is possible? We are going forward, and we are in the same tempo. So, yeah, is that the idea for your pieces, for this piece, for Mahler Quartet?
For many of the very, very rhythmic pieces, my sense of time is that you don't rush. That's a mistake if you get faster and faster. But do you play the beat like this, or like this, or like that? Do you play it behind the beat, right on the beat, or ahead of the beat? I think for me, but you're leaning forwards. You're leaning ahead. Old style jazz, like in New York Counterpoint, the feeling is like a backbeat. You're a little back behind the beat. It's a 1920s, 1930s jazz feeling, which Richard Stoltzman liked to play, the clarinetist who first did the piece. But for the percussion pieces, I think you have it exactly right. You are playing, and people who play right on the beat, it's very mechanical. It's not interesting to playing up and down, up and down, up and down. So the idea that you're leaning forward but never rushing, that's wonderful. Congratulations again.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Before Pedro Pablo, one more question. Master Reich, is important for you the communication with real people, real audiences, because the elements, the primary material of in your musics and in your most famous works is tonal melodies or melodic modules or tonal isolated chords like you do in mallet quartet, for example, just smooth chords, for example. Is it important for you, the contact with real people?
Absolutely, yes. And now I must tell you a story about your own country. It was 1972, and there was the first major international arts festival in Pamplona. Luis de Pablo ran it. And I was invited with my ensemble to play drumming and other pieces. And they put us in, to play drumming, they put us in a basketball court or outdoor field. Maybe it was an outdoor field. And I would say the audience was maybe thousands of people, maybe 200 music critics and cognoscenti, and everybody else was just people from Pamplona. And we, the musicians, we looked and we thought, you know, what will be the reaction? So we started playing drumming, and we start with the drums, and no immediate reaction. And then after a while, we get more active part, and I hear, "Ole, ole!" I think, wow, this is great. They don't know who I am. They don't know my name. They don't care. They like it. So that's the most important thing in the world. That's why we love Johann Sebastian Bach, because anybody who isn't deaf will react to that. I played it for musicians in Africa, and they liked it. So the answer to your question is absolutely. I cannot understand how someone could not care about that. And I don't know anyone, musician or composer, who doesn't care about that.
Carol, it's evident, but you know you are being a transgressor or transgrader. How is the word in English? Transgressor.
Translated?
A transgressor. Okay, you are a transgressor of the main lines in vanguardist music. Pierre Boulez and Arnold Schoenberg, etc., etc. Do you have these conscience or this conscience of be a little rebel in this panoramic world of the music?
Well, when I was a music student in 1950s, as you probably know or remember, the dominant music was the music of Boulez and Stockhausen and John Cage. And these are all great composers. But the music, particularly of Stockhausen and Boulez, is something I can appreciate the craftsmanship, the excellence of the construction, but emotionally, it's not me. Before that generation, there was the war between Stravinsky and Schoenberg, right? Well, I was on the Stravinsky side. Schoenberg is a great composer. Berg is a great composer. Webern was the god for Boulez and Stockhausen. But for me, emotionally, I was drawn to the early ballets of Stravinsky. Rite of Spring was changed my life. And so I did not, as a student, say, you know, I'm going to have a revolution. No, I just thought, I can't spend my life. If I became a composer because I love Stravinsky and I love Bach and I love John Coltrane and I love Miles Davis and I love African music and I love Balinese, I can't spend my life writing 12-tone music. I studied with Luciano Berio, a very fine musician and a very, very lovely person, very good person. But it was, like Bob Dylan said, it ain't me, babe. So I did not make a political statement. I simply started to do what I love to do. And I was not the only one. Arvo Pärt went through a similar... I wrote terrible 12-tone pieces because I had to. I was a student. So I think I don't think that anyone succeeds musically by making a political statement. I think they succeed by doing what it is they were given a gift from God to do that job, to do that particular work. And to discover that is the biggest gift. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Wonderful. Wonderful response. Okay, Pedro Pablo Cámara, you have some questions about your works, the work you are performing?
Hi, Mr. Reich. Thank you so much. I will come back to New York Counterpoint because in our version we will play in the concert, we do a double transcription. On the one hand, we play with saxophone instead of clarinet with the ensemble, and in other hand, we play with 11 saxophones instead of 10 voices pre-recorded. So in the compositional process, Mr. Reich, did you think about the possibility of the transcription?
No, not at all. I was writing for clarinet. It was for clarinet. But I know with many pieces of mine, if you have a piece for one instrument, the notes are on paper. So if you use other instruments, you just change the timbre. So I wasn't thinking about it. No, when I wrote it, I just wrote it for clarinet.
Of course. And one of the challenges of the piece is the sound result of the original version. How do you feel? So is for you important to try to find the quality of the different performance, as in the original piece is recorded by one performer. So the ensemble should play like one performer, or we can achieve of the different possibilities of the people, the different people.
I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you asking me what it is like for you to play against the tape of Richard Stoltzman, that kind of question? Or Evans Applaud?
So it is. The question is if it's important for you to try to be the same performer with 11 performers as in the original piece, or because it's an ensemble, we can have different kind of personalities.
Well, you will naturally have different sounds, but if you're all playing clarinet, it's okay. If you're playing clarinets and saxophones, I don't know what to tell you. You'll send me a recording. I'll tell you. But then it won't be on this program.
Now, I asked you because we try always to have the same articulation, same sound, of course, tempo, also gestural movements to have the same approach. No, that is why I question that. My question is this.
Well, I mean, basically, if you within normal musical practice, players will, more or less try to adapt to each other in the ensemble. So that has never been a problem in my experience. I tell you the truth, I have not heard many performances of all clarinets. A few. Usually in the school, because then you have lots of students. And in my experience, the problem was that you couldn't hear the soloist. And they wouldn't amplify, which was a mistake. If you're going to do it live, I think the soloist has to have a little bit of amplification, not just so we can hear them against all so many other players right behind them. Beyond that, who knows?
And about the disposition of the stage, because we're playing around and the soloist, the main voice, the live voice, we play in one of in the corners. Should we play in the middle in front of the audience?
The soloist should be heard. So you put them in the position where they can be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, that would be in the middle and downstage, close to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's an unusual room, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
But you want them to be heard. And whatever works, that's what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one little question. Okay, because you indicate popular inspiration in Bartók, Stravinsky, and in jazz. How do you feel that time has proved you were right? Because you are one of the... Yes, because in some occasions you told that Schoenberg lifted an artificial wall that minimized these roots. How do you feel that the world and the time has proved you were right in your postulations?
Well, let's be clear. Schoenberg's will live as long as musicians play music. He's a great composer, Arnold Schoenberg. But if you were to go to a list of performances around the world, you would find less of him and more of Stravinsky. Ultimately, maybe it doesn't matter, but it's just a fact. A couple of years ago, I was asked to be a composer in residence at Carnegie Hall in New York City. And they asked me, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I'd like to present a series of concerts called 3 Generations. And the 3 generations were, number 1, my own generation, Terry Riley, Phil Glass, John Adams, a little bit younger, Arvo Pärt. Second generation, the people 20 years younger, the bang on a can generation, David Lang, Julia Wolf, Michael Gordon, and many others of that age. And the third generation, people 20 years younger than them, Nico Muhly and Carolyn Shaw, and I'm forgetting some other names. And what made me feel very good about it is that my generation, we were all different. The bang on a can generation was very interested in, also Louis Andriessen in my generation, was interested in this, but they took it somewhere else. The Nico Muhly generation that were then in their late 30s, not quite 40, they listened to both these generations and they went forward. So there was some continuity, some continuation of these ideas. My generation, the generation of Arvo Pärt and Glass and Adams and myself, we didn't have to, but we faced a break in Western music between increasing complexity harmonically, increasing chromatic harmony, or stopping that at the 12-tone serial points and saying basta, because we just wanted to change. The following generations did not make that generational break. They continued on because they liked what preceded them. Now, I think this is true in America. It's true in most of the English-speaking countries. I don't think it's as true insofar as I know in Europe. But you are a better judge of that than I am.
Well, here in European conservatories, for example, it seems that Pierre Boulez and Stockhausen and John Cage are main authors in analysis, in harmony, etc., etc. I don't know if in the States it's different with it. I think so. I think you are more analyzed in the States, because in Europe we have many pedantic professors and they have abstract ideas and non-real ideas about music and communication. What we admire of your music is the role of communication, of interaction with people. And this is an ideal very forgotten in other aesthetics. So,
my condolences.
No, but things are changing. Things are changing.
I am sure that you have some young composers who are listening to rock and roll and hip hop and who knows what. And I'm sure we will hear from them. And they will also know all about 12-tone and serial music as well, and aleatoric music as well. We have a new generation. As a matter of fact, let's see. Gosh, I can't. His name, the guitar player. I give you an example of two different musicians. One of them is the American. His name is Bryce Dessner. He's living in Paris. He is trained as a classical guitar player and composer. But he also formed a band called The National, which has become very, very famous and very successful with his brother. And he is a completely professional rock and roll star and an international successful composer with recordings on Deutsche Grammophon. Second case, Johnny Greenwood. He's the guitarist and keyboard player with Radiohead, one of the most important rock and roll groups ever to exist. And he was originally a violist. He reads music just fine. He writes music for the films, very successful. In the Bang on a Can All-Stars group there, the leader is Mark Stewart. Mark Stewart is a cellist, graduated from Eastman Academy in New York State. And then also as a hobby, for fun, he played the guitar. He came to New York City when he graduated the conservatory, and he found he could make a living as a guitarist who could read music. So he's a completely avant-garde star in the Bang on a Can All-Stars, and he plays music director for Paul Simon and tours the world and makes much more money than you or I. So this is a new generation of musicians. They don't say, I have to be just a classical musician, just a rock and roll musician. As a percussionist, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm addressing the percussionist here. Because percussionists live in two worlds. They can play concerts and they can play in a club. So I think this is a very healthy, good situation, and we will see what the results are.
So you were an inspiration for progressive rock composers like Brian Eno or King Crimson, the group King Crimson. How do you feel with these connections with progressive rock?
Well, I am very proud. I'm delighted. I had a conversation just a few days ago with Brian Eno about his great learning that he got from It's Gonna Rain, the very first tape piece in 1965. And on the other hand, John Adams, one of our greatest composers, is always say the influence that he got from drumming and other early pieces of mine. So, I mean, that's wonderful. It's nice to get a good review in the newspaper, but it's better to have great musicians say, thank you, I like your music. I learned something from it. That's the most wonderful compliment you can get.
Okay, I agree. Maestros, Juanjo, Pedro, Pablo.
I think it's a good moment to speak about groove.
About?
Groove. The groove. The groove.
Oh, okay, the groove. Okay.
I'm thinking about all these musicians.
Okay.
That's a question also. I don't know if I will do a good question in that case, but it seems for me that for the classical musicians, the bar is some very important thing. For example, for me, I like very much to get on the bar on the last movement of the quartet, of the mallet quartet, because there are 5/8, 2/4, 6/8, 7/8. So I believe, I don't know if you agree, but I like to make, some getting down on the beat, on the earth. And in the first movement, it's more on the pattern, no? Because if you do on the bar, we lose the groove, no?
Right. Absolutely true. You want to, with the changing meters, it's, you don't have to, you count the 2s and the 3s. You don't have to count 7/8, 5/8. 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2. You want to make a musical whole out of it, and the meter sign 5/8 7/8 is, you need it. But really, if you just see, this is 3 2 3 2, you could put triangles and straight lines and get the same and a better result just reading across, not getting hung up at the bar. And so you're absolutely right. You want to be able to move across all great music. Orlando de Lassus in the Renaissance is floating across. There is no bar line. So that's an ideal. It's to just, the music goes. The bar lines are there to help you learn the piece, but they are not stop signs at each corner.
I say also that because once I was playing drumming, I like very much to do but when we have to do the phase, the phase, el desfase, la traducción es desfase, el phase.
Yeah,
because it's a technical thing that also, if somebody told me you don't have to do in the one you have to do because like that we can understand more the phase. Is that true?
Absolutely. When I am playing in drumming, I am the one who phases, who moves ahead. I mean, somebody has to stay put, and somebody has to move. So I'm nervous and I move ahead, right?
Me too.
We know who the phasers are.
I am the one moving.
So we are both cursed, right? The difficulty, the virtuosity of the phasing is, can you control it? Because it's like a vacuum cleaner. The next downbeat is saying, you must come to me. And we say, wait, slowly. And that is difficult to do. That is very difficult to do. And you can't be thinking about downbeats. When my ensemble was first learning drumming, the most common question was, where is one? And that's good. That means we were really playing it well. And it's good for the listener, for the audience. They don't know, because to be in the music, everybody walking out of the hall, they're bored. But if there's just this continuously moving and constantly changing rhythmic relationship, then you are glued to listen. What's going on? You have it right.
Yeah, thank you very much. First time I did with a lot of tempo. Right. When I was changing, I was trying to change also the beat, the one beat. and was too much. Was tactic,
Absolutely.
tactic.
It's as if your hands are doing something and you just get them a little bit faster, and you yourself don't really know where one is.
That's it. So yes, we can be floating more. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
It will help.
Thank you.
Thanks.
¿Algo más, Pedro?
A very small question, it's nothing.
No, I'm
just
answering
about
your questions.
No, it's very small.
Are you playing saxophone or clarinet or both?
Saxophones.
Right.
Saxophones. Yeah. And we will play with the 11 saxophones with students here.
Oh, good. That was arranged for all saxophones. It works very well.
Yeah, we play from soprano till baritone.
Right.
And I would like to ask you a little bit about many people play a little caesure, a small break between movements.
No.
I don't know. No. Okay.
No, you really
That's
want to
clear.
know. Yeah. In my music, I think Tehalim has a break between movements, but basically all the pieces, it's an attacca. You just go straight through. You change tempo, but you keep going.
That's clear.
Maestro, one experience I had when I was playing drumming for 1 hour, it was the overtones.
Right.
That's like Xenakis. He did in the Pleiades. He invented some metal instrument, and you could hear. But this how do you thought about that? I mean, for me, the idea is when the glockenspiel they play, it's just another world. It's something like crazy thing, amazing, no? And people listen more that sometimes than the notes, no?
Yes, absolutely. When I was working on the marimba section, I was playing marimba and recording myself and playing it back, playing against the recording, overdubbing. And I began to hear women's voices. And I thought, no drugs, what's going on?
No more drugs.
So I began to realize the marimba is pitched around the frequency, the upper range of the female voice. So the overtones and the fundamentals combine to give you the audio illusion of a woman's voice. So I then called up Joan LaBarbera and the original singers, and I said, come on over for rehearsal. I think there's a vocal part in drumming part 2. And what I said, now I just made a loop of the different relationships, 1/8 note ahead, 2/8 notes ahead. And I said, write down or start singing what you hear. The result of this combination of the same pattern in different rhythmic positions. And we, the singers and myself, began to sing, write down these, which became the vocal
part.
Exactly, because it's really there. It is really part of the combination. That if you write all the notes out on one staff, you will see, oh, well, here's that melody if you like, and here's another one if you prefer, and so on and so forth. And the same thing with the glockenspiels. Only there, it's so high, the only way you have to whistle.
That's because of the whistle player. Pedro.
Yeah, I can't do it so well anymore. I used to do it. And because you can no longer sing so high. It's impossible to sing so high. And then I began to hear, well, wait a minute. If you had a piccolo, you could play those same resulting patterns that are acoustically really there from the result of all this mixing together. But you know another thing, which I know too, as a player, when you're playing the glockenspiels, in the audience, it's jingle bells. And by you, it's knives in your ears. It can be painful.
Yes, totally. So that's why you're using microphones also, because the drums are naturally the loudest.
then the marimbas need some, and the glockenspiels in the audience can be very quiet. And so you want to have all the sound of the piece of drumming all coming from the same sound source. So amplification is to make balance. Also, you could not. The women are singing. It's not Wagner. You have to sing very quietly, but you have to be heard. So it's acoustically necessary to amplify the voices in the marimba section in drumming. It's part of the instrumentation. So in other words, here's another way to think about it. What instrument did Miles Davis play? Answer. Does anybody know?
Trumpet.
What instrument did Miles Davis play? Anybody?
Trumpet.
Oh, not really. He played flugelhorn.
Flugelhorn, yeah.
Wait. With a harmon mute and a microphone. And without the flugelhorn and the harmon mute and the microphone, no Miles Davis.
No Miles Davis, yeah.
So that's instrumentation or orchestration 20th, 21st century. And that's what I'm talking about in drumming.
See.
The microphone is not, rock and roll. No, it's like, otherwise we can't, it's part of the piece.
Stamp. It's timbre.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maestro.
Thank you. Are we free to go?
Por favor. Sí.
Or are we
Thank you.
Now, maybe we are prisoners of Zoom.
Yeah, a lot. This pandemic, we are prisoners of Zoom in this pandemic.
We are.
With inhabitants of Zoom.
Well,
Thank you so much, Maestro Reich.
well, to my fellow prisoners, thank you. It was a pleasure.
You are a person full of abundance, full of richness, and thank you for all these sounds, these lights you gifted to the world and to the art and to real life.
Ta-da, ta-da.
This is the solemn goodbye for this meeting.
Goodbye.
We need to tell this.
Okay, well, it's much. I've enjoyed this a lot. This is the best Zoom I've had in a long time.
Thank you very much. Okay. Maestro, we would like to have you sometimes very soon here.
I hope when we can move like human beings, it will be great, right? When we can play music live on stage, that's what we want.
Hopefully.
Pues queridos amigos, queridas amigas, desde el Festival de las Artes de Castilla y León y el Instituto de Investigaciones Artísticas Katarina Gurska, queremos agradecer inmensamente al maestro Steve Reich, a Juanjo Guillem, a Pedro Pablo Cámara y a todos los que habéis estado escuchando. Ha sido interesantísimo profundizar en la obra de este autor tan decisivo, tan importante, y ojalá que podamos disfrutar con más gusto, con más entusiasmo, con más conocimiento las obras que nos esperan en este festival. Así que ánimo, éxito a los dos maestros que tenemos aquí que participarán en este festival y Steve, que tengas una vida muy larga, muy abundante, llena de buenos frutos y de buenos dones para todo el mundo.
Maestro. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Maestro.
Bye.
Bye.